How's it going, Borderlands community, and welcome back to another Borderlands 3 video. Today we're going to be going over the action skills. You guys know we have our 4 different characters: Amara, Flank, Mose, and Zane. Today I'm going to be going over Amara in specific, but I want to teach you guys a couple of things about each of the different skills that we will be able to unlock for each character. Starting out with Amara here, Amara is able to equip a action skill effect or augment, which is the like military looking badge, and she also has a action skill element. While the other characters, it's different. Flank has the action skill, also a pet that he can equip, and 2 action skill augments or effects. So each character is a little bit different with their skill trees and what they can have. Mose has 2 action skills that she can use. Technically she uses 1 action skill, but she's able to equip 2 different guns. You'll see here the octagonal shaped upgrades on her skill tree will unlock a gun for her that she'll be able to equip into 1, but she can go to a different skill tree, let's say, and let's say maybe she wants to get to this gun down here. She could upgrade all the way down to that point and equip that gun into her second slot. So whenever she uses her action skill, she'll be able to use 2 different guns, and she also gets 2 different action skill augments or effects. The action skill augments or effects directly are upgrades that affect the actual action skill itself, or has something to do with the action skill itself. Zane, he can have 2 different action skills while having also 4 action skill augments. However, the augments have to be within that same skill tree, I believe. So right, there's 1 augment. We can purchase that, purchase a couple more things here. Put the second one to there, and we can move over to like a new skill tree or something like that. Add 1 on there. Purchase a couple more of these things. Put the augment there and put the second augment on there, so we can have multiple different things. But today we're focusing on Amara and going over her stuff. I was going to do one big video for this, but it just looks like there's so much stuff that I might have to do a couple different videos, but we're going to start with her first. She's a character I plan on doing whenever I get the game, so I focused a little bit more on her just because of how cool she looked. But first things first, let's go over each action skill, and then we'll actually go down the trees, and I'll explain some different things, guys, because the action skill itself will actually change depending on how far you get on the tree. You'll notice that there is stuff on the sides. The Borderlands games haven't been like that before. There's stuff on each side. Basically what happens whenever you unlock a skill and you get further and further down the skill tree, you automatically unlock the thing that's here. So this one is a ability that allows us to add corrosive damage to our action skill element. Like I said, she has an action skill element, which is right here. So we can go further down the tree and notice that everything here unlocked. We don't have to actually get things on the left and right side of the tree. It's free. It goes along with that. So this is the actual phase slam skill tree. But notice how we got all the way down to another octagonal shape, which is the actual action skill. Basically what it does is it changes what the action skill actually does. You can look here. Amara summons a line of fists that erupt from the ground, dealing damage to enemies in front of Amara. So we can change that there. The actual action skill itself is different. And because we got down to here, we also unlocked the augment, so we can put that augment on. However, you can only have a certain amount of different skills, action skills, actives, and augments. It depends on the character, but we're going to reset. We're going to go over every single skill for Amara, and then we'll have other videos for the other characters. Starting off, let's just go over each action skill. So we have the phase slam on this current skill tree. And the next one, we have the phase cast, where she sends a projectile of herself, and everything just basically is damaged that it goes through that little path. And then we have the phase grasp, which is a lot like the phase lock from Maya and Borderlands 2, if you guys have played that. Pretty similar. You've probably seen some gameplay of a lot of these skills being done, but let's start right with her phase slam skill tree. So you can go ahead and just buy the normal one itself. You start automatically with a shock element. Corrosive is also on this skill tree, so if you want to go for that, the slam skill tree basically is the one you have to go for to get the corrosive skill. But let's go ahead and just look at the first couple skills here. So the first one, Route to Rise, Amara gains increased maximum health, so we'll go ahead and pour that in there. Personal space, Amara's weapon shots deal bonus damage based on the distance to her target. The closer the target, the greater the bonus, which is pretty insane, especially if you have a shotgun. It's already just going to do even more damage. Amara constantly regenerates health. The lower her health, the more powerful the regeneration, which is pretty dope. Actually, I'm going to reset and just go through these skills one at a time. So this is a pretty good one. If you're wanting health or just health in general, you can actually get a lot from this skill tree just starting off the bat, which is pretty good because, you know, starting off the game, you're probably not going to have a bunch of really good shields that can give you health regeneration. Like I said, right here we have our first actual other element, which we'll be able to put on there. Let's go to the next ones here. Arms deal. Amara deals increased splash damage and takes reduced splash damage. So that's not too bad. A little octopus there, makes sense. The next one. Whenever Amara deals damage to an enemy with her action skill, she adds a stack of Samsara. For every stack of Samsara, Amara gains increased gun damage and health regeneration for a few seconds, stack decay after a few seconds. So basically the more and more and more you keep killing, you gain increased gun damage and health regeneration, which is pretty dope. And you actually can see on the actual skill tree itself, it shows the amount of stacks you can have, and upgrading that obviously can increase its effects and stuff like that. Helping Hands. For a few seconds after her action skill, Amara's arms remain active and grant her damage reduction. That's pretty dope. Cool looking skill tree. Through this skill tree, we gain her first action skill effect, or augment, that's what they were saying. That augment, Amara's action skill now casts a Nova when it damaged enemies, dealing damage to all enemies nearby, which is pretty dope. And for this one, we actually can change what her action skill does. Now we have the choice whether or not we want to do that. I should have equipped that. We have the choice. So now her normal action skill for this tree is here, but because we've gotten down to here, we have now unlocked the choice to actually change what her action skill does. Amara summons a line of fists that erupt from the ground, dealing damage to enemies in front of the area. Which is pretty nice. We could use that a lot, but it actually changes what happens to her. Instead of doing a normal type of attack, it will actually change into this one right here, which will completely change what happens with her action skill, which is pretty dope. Whether or not you want to change that, I think it's up to you, because you can just go back and rechange it again if you do not like how that is. And that might affect some different things within her skill trees, so you just kind of have to work that out. Let's go down here with the normal upgrades here. Whenever Amara takes damage, she gains a stack of mindfulness. For every stack of mindfulness, Amara gains improved shield reduction, shield regeneration delay, and movement speed. Stack decay over seconds. So she has a lot of decaying, kind of stacking stuff going on there. Amara gains increased melee damage. Find your center. Additionally, for a few seconds after using her action skill, Amara gains increased range. So her range can increase for her melee after she uses her action skill, and just flat out increases melee damage. It's 100%, so it's literally just doubling her melee damage, which is pretty dope. Kill skill. Killing an enemy with Amara's action skill grants all allies increased movement speed for a few seconds. So all allies will gain increased movement speed, which is pretty dope. Now we're down to this layer here. Amara, one with nature. Amara gains increased max health and elemental damage resistance to her action skill element. So whatever her current element is, which we have corrosive, it could be shock if we took it off, it could be, you know, whatever. I think fire is also one as well. So depending on whatever element we have, she gains just increased health flat out from this, purchasing this one in general, but she also gains a damage reduction by 12%. If we level that all the way up, that's a 40% damage reduction depending on whatever action skill element we choose to have her equipped with. Downfall. Amara leaps into the air and shoots an elemental beam below her briefly, followed by a slam. So it's kind of like a beaming one. This again is something that will actually change what her action skill is for this tree, so it completely changes it out. Let's move on to the final couple ones in this tree. Do unto others. Whenever an enemy damages Amara, she automatically throws an energy orb back at them, doing action skill elemental damage. So depending on whatever her action skill elemental is, this skill has a short cooldown, so you can not just constantly do it, but every 8 seconds if an enemy hits you, it'll keep happening. Whenever Amara deals melee damage to an enemy, she gains increased action skill damage and increased gun damage for a few seconds. Not too bad. You can purchase that one 5 times as well, which is pretty good. Now this skill right here, guys, in my opinion, is one of the best ones. It makes sense why it's so low and it just costs 1. You can't, you know, increase the effects, but it's so further down. But Whenever Amara enters fight for her real life, she immediately gains a second wind, restoring her health, and creates an action skill Elemental Nova that may knock back nearby enemies. This skill has a long cooldown, so it's a 2-minute cooldown, which is, you know, a pretty long cooldown, and it completely makes sense. Basically, she gets a free life every 2 minutes. She can just completely die every 2 minutes and just come back and actually do a pretty decently big attack during that as well, which is pretty nice if you just want a free life. And this whole skill tree in general deals a lot with health and healing herself. So if you want to be able to heal yourself and gain movement speed for the team and everything else, this skill tree just in general is pretty good for that. Probably not too bad of a one to do if you're just playing the game by yourself. Okay, Glamour. This is another action skill effect. Enemies damaged by Amara's action skill become confused and temporarily attack their enemies. However, action skill cooldown is increased, so it increases the cooldown, but enemies become confused and attack each other. If Amara targets an enemy with phased grasp, grasp them first, enemies near the grasp targeted are confused as well. So that's talking about one of the other action skills, but it's allowing you to use basically this skill here, or this action skill effect, for another skill tree, which is the phase lock one right here. So it's allowing to basically go to another skill tree and affect the other ones, which is pretty nice. I like how they have that. And the final one at the very bottom is Blitz. Melee override. Press V while aiming at an... It's just using PC controls. So press V while aiming at an enemy to make Amara dash at a short distance forward and perform a special melee strike, dealing elemental melee damage. If Blitz melee attacks an enemy, Blitz cooldown is immediately reset. So if you kill an enemy with Blitz, it immediately just resets, which is pretty nice. So we're going to reset the skill tree, and we're going to move on to her next one. So this is her next one here. Again, we default back to electricity if we do not have a actual action skill element set. So this is the phase cast one. Amara sends forward a astral projection of herself, dealing damage to everything in its path, which is a pretty cool one. Cooldown is 28 seconds. The damage is 92. Let's check the other ones. What were they? 16 seconds grasp time. Okay. So it looks like you get the phase grasp back faster than anyone. Phase cast is seconds, and then the slam is 35 seconds. So the slam is the longest cooldown, without any upgrades, of course. But yeah, let's go to the next one. Do harm. Killing an enemy grants Amara a stack of rush. Activating her action skill consumes all rush stacks. For every stack of rush consumed, Amara's action skill damage is temporarily increased. So you can stack this rush stuff and increase the damage of your action skill, which is pretty dope. Alright, fast hands. Amara's reload speed, weapon swap speed, and mode switch speed are improved. So that's pretty crazy. Just more reload speed. Nothing to be, you know, nothing bad there, especially if you're an LMG player. Not too bad. Violent Tapestry. Applying a side effect grants Amara a stack of rush. Activating her action skill consumes all rush attacks. For every stack of rush consumed, Amara's status effect chance is temporarily increased. Pretty cool there. So let's go ahead and jump down to the next one. So we've unlocked the first action skill effect here, which is Soul Sap. A portion of all damage dealt by Amara's action skill is returned to her and her nearby enemies as health, or allies as health. So you gain 30% back health any of the damage you did. So you could potentially completely heal yourself if you killed people with your action skill, which is pretty nice. We'll put that on right now. Here's another one. Amara grants increased reload speed for every stack of rush. After consuming rush stacks, this bonus is increased for a few seconds. So this skill tree might be roughly, you know, based on the rush stuff that we have here. Move on to the next one. Amara gains increased accuracy and critical hit damage for a few seconds after activating her action skill. That's pretty cool. Amara gains increased action skill cooldown rate. So this is just a flat out just cooldown rate, which can go all the way to 25%. So a fourth of the cooldown rate can be chopped off. This might be good to just get to early on in the game and just leave it here, but because, you know, you'll have the different stuff here to use as well. But not only that, just having that cooldown rate might be good for, you know, maybe something like the actual slam, which is 35 seconds. Just getting that 25% cooldown is pretty nice. let alone this one right here. This one's another really good one you guys should probably shoot out for. If you want nothing to do with the rush skill tree, stuff like that, nothing to do with the rest of that, just this one in general, getting to here, getting halfway is pretty nice because you get this one right here. All action skill augments gain increased effects. So you guys saw these augments on the left and right, on the the sides we've been going over. Well, this one right here basically just increases all of them, which is pretty nice. Obviously, you only can have one on at a time, but it seems to do pretty decent stuff here. Let's look at the Soul Sap one, the one we just unlocked right here. 30% of skill damage dealt, so 30%, but purchasing this right here would add another 20% to it, which is pretty nice. All of these are actually pretty effective when getting this upgrade. So the Ascendant one's pretty good. Not only that, you unlock another action skill augment, which is right here, Skillfulness of the Mind. Skillfulness of the Mind is 0.75 seconds after being damaged. So it increases some stuff there, which is pretty nice. And we have Deliverance. Amara sends forward astral projection of herself. Oh, we just read all that. After Amara's astral projection damages an enemy or object, it releases homing elemental projectiles that trigger her action skill effect on enemies. So basically, after it's done, it just sends out elemental like homing missiles, basically, is what's going on there, which is pretty dope. So just basically more damage in general. That does change the actual action skill and what it might actually look like. So not too bad, but I think that one ends up being better overall if you do that. Let's get the next tree going on here. This one right here is actually really cool. It basically just changes. Astral projection deals increased damage for every enemy it hits. So for every enemy it hits, it gets plus 50% enemy hit, and the cooldown is 30 seconds. So I think it actually changes the cooldown. It ends up being 2 seconds longer, but it also lowers the damage as well. But it gains increased damage for every enemy it hits. So you have to make sure you're hitting enemies if you end up changing to this one, midway through your skill tree here. So it's gonna be a little bit different if you go with that one. The icon looks cool, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure about that. Amara gains improved fire rate and charge time. That's pretty much it for that one. Laid Bear. Enemies take increased damage from all sources for a few seconds after being damaged by Amara's action skill. Pretty cool. Wrath. Amara gains increased gun damage. This effect is increased after she activates her action skill. So this is just flat out increased gun damage, which is pretty nice. You'll notice once you get further down the skill tree for most of these skill trees, things end up being cheaper and not worth as much. I think they really tried to optimize the points in skill trees, because I found that in Borderlands 2, a lot of times you were just kind of stuck to either 2 skill trees, leaving one skill tree just like completely bare, which I always hated and didn't like. But it looks like they really tried to optimize a lot of things and give you some freebie stuff as well. Just getting so far down the skill tree, you just unlock like a completely different version of your action skill or an action skill augment. And it makes going through the trees like that much better and like that much more worth it, which is pretty nice. You're not just going through a skill tree just to get a certain, like skill tree like this way at the bottom. You're actually doing it for other things on the side, and just getting down to a certain level unlocks a lot more than just being able to level up more things. It actually gives you something completely different, which is nice. Pretty cool to have. I'm glad they did that. Changes things up, makes things a little more experimental when trying to get stuff. When Amara kills an enemy with a gun or action skill, she creates a homing projectile that seeks out a new enemy, dealing her action skill element damage. Any overkill damage is added to the projectile's damage. So again, just like more missiles, more things, more explosions, which is nice. Amara's Rust stacks gain increased effectiveness, which is pretty nice. You can increase effectiveness by 30%. Just getting all the way down to there, I imagine you're pulling a lot of rush stuff if you're all the way to here. So this might be pretty good to have at the end. Tan Diva. Amara sends forward an astral projection of herself when it hits its targets. It explodes, dealing all nearby damage. So again, that changes the cooldown rate and the damage if you were to change to that. And this one right here at the bottom, which is pretty cool. Action skill can be activated while it's cooling down. So Amara's action skill can be activated while it's cooling down. So mid cooldown, this skill may only be used once per completed cooldown. So you have to completely cool it down, use it, and then be able to use it halfway through cooldown again. Additionally, if Amara's action skill kills an enemy, it refunds half of her rush stack. So that's pretty cool. And it also just gains a bonus 10 to the rush stacks, which is pretty cool as well. So that skill tree, I'd say, is probably one of the more complicated ones. Dealing with all the rush stuff and the stacks, and you're just trying to do a lot of math on math, just to figure out what's the most best thing to go for in the skill tree, which is pretty crazy. So going over to the phase grasp, this is kind of like Maya's back in Borderlands 2. So let's go down this one. Passive ability. Of course, it's also good to look at these further up ones just to get a couple points on some of these top ones before you might dump all your points into another one, because some of these quick ones up here might be really good just early on, or might be able to get a couple of these early ones here to help you in the skill tree, like down here or something, which could be pretty good to mix and match different things there. So Amara status effect deals increased damage over time and have increased duration. Her action skill effect deals further increased damage, so that's pretty cool. Just a couple of buffs there. Amara gains increased weapon handling and accuracy, so just flat out accuracy, just pretty dope. So 30% pretty much on both handling and accuracy both. Convert a portion of damage dealt by Amara's weapons into her action skill element. Not bad. So I'm curious how this one works exactly. So a portion of the damage dealt by Amara's weapons into her action skill element. So maybe if you're shooting like a fire gun, it puts that towards it instead. Maybe you get like more fire, so like 40% of that fire is transferred. I don't know. Amara deals increased elemental damage. Shock damage is further increased. So just more shock damage for whatever reason. Just for the heck of it seems like. Amara gains increased melee damage, and her melee damage is converted to her action skill element. So this is a pretty big one. It's just 1 point, and it just adds 75% melee damage out of nowhere. But it also changes her action skill element to be her fist or her melee. Whenever Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, it has a chance to spread to another nearby enemy. That's pretty dope to have. Let's reset that though. That's pretty cool. Just the fact that it can like travel like that. Other one here, so this is the incendiary. So if you wanted to have fire instead of electricity or corrosion, you could do it there. Dread. Amara's gun damage is increased for a few seconds after an enemy is grasped. Whenever an enemy player kills a grasped enemy, their current weapon is instantly reloaded, so pretty dope. So that makes people want to actually shoot the actual person you have locked, which is pretty cool. Amara summons a giant fist that bursts from the ground and locks the target enemy in place for a few seconds. Whenever the grasped enemy is killed, a new fist seeks out and grasps a new target, so it just basically transfers. It actually shows it here, up to +4 different targets that it will actually do it to for the bonus targets. Let's go over to this effect. Amara's action skill creates a singularity that pulls an enemy. So this is one that's pretty fun to mess around with. So you can actually put that on and then like go over to here and use like the phase cast one, which is a projectile, right? So you send out your projectile like projection and it pulls people towards it. If you guys were looking through this skill tree, you found that there were different skills like increased damage for enemy it hits. Well, if it's a black hole and you're sending that out, it's going to get more damage just because it's flat out going to suck enemies towards it. So I recommend, if you're trying to get down to this one, you will literally create a black hole that deals more and more damage the more and more enemies it pulls in, which is kind of a fascinating one to build for. It could be pretty crazy, depending if you really stick to it and get all the way down to that skill tree and get all the way to this one. So you're kind of going like 3/4 down one and like halfway down another. But that might be something that you just like reset for halfway through the game or something like that. Amara's bullets that damage enemies have a chance to ricochet and deal and decrease damage to other nearby enemies. Ricochet, chance, and damage are increased if the target is currently affected by phase grasp or stillness of mind. Stillness of mind was another one that we were looking at earlier, if you want to go back and look at that. So basically upgrading increases the ricochet chance and stuff like that. Look at this one here. Amara gains increased magazine size with elemental weapons. So just plus 20 magazine size. It's not even percentage, it's just 20 bullets for anything elemental gun. Whenever Amara triggers an elemental effect on an enemy, when that enemy dies, that enemy explodes, dealing her attuned element damage along with any other element that is currently afflicted upon that enemy. This skill has a short cooldown. So this is another one that just kind of automatically happens every 8 seconds. It will deal, so this is currently 4 damage. We can upgrade that up a bit. 13 damage, and it will explode based on the attuned element damage that it's currently affected with. Ties that bind. Okay, so this is the giant fist that bursts from the ground. Enemies near the grass target are linked. So put that on. Grass targets are linked, and any damage dealt to that linked target is shared between all other linked targets. So it will grasp one, and it will have a 30% chance of the damage dealt, and it decreases the cooldown to 18 seconds, which is pretty nice. Grasp immune damage is 34, so basically it links them all together, and they just kind of have the same damage, which is pretty cool. Fist over matter. This one's pretty cool. I like this one. Amara summons a giant fist, blah, blah, blah. After grasping the target, large fists appear and are constantly smashing the area, dealing damage to nearby enemies. This is basically just the JoJo Bizarre Adventure fucking punching. That's literally all that is. So it changes the cooldown rate and everything else along with that. Amara gains lifesteal whenever she deals elemental damage with her weapon. It's a pretty cool one. Conflux. Whenever Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, she gains a chance to randomly electrocute, ignite, or melt that enemy. And you can get that all the way to 35%. So this one's kind of crazy as well. Whenever Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, she gains a chance to randomly electrocute, ignite, or melt that enemy. So I'm thinking, is that with the same element? If I shoot fire status effect to an enemy, will it only have a random chance to ignite, or could it electrocute them or melt them just for the heck of it? That's what I want to know. So forceful expression. Amara's guns deal bonus element damage based on her action skill element by 18%. So I currently have incendiary on. All my guns get an 18% damage boost because of that current element that I have on. So this is a long video. We went over all of her different skills, action skills here. I mean, this is a pretty cool thing. If you guys haven't checked this out yet, definitely go look on their website and check all of this out. Basically, each tree has a different thing that it can do. The one thing I want to know is whether or not we can get like nuclear or frost. We don't have those different things for her action skill elements. It's just, you know, shock, corrosion, and fire. I wish we could have like some of the newer stuff like frost or nuclear. It looks like there was explosion like ones there, so we kind of have combustion or maybe kind of nuclear in some ways, but not exactly. So we have some, you know, different stuff there, but overall her action skills are pretty neat. She's definitely more of the, I don't know, basic, I guess you could say. I don't want to say basic, but with the way she has her action skills, action skill effects, and different stuff like that in her element, it's a little bit easier to go along with. With all the other ones I've seen, they're going to be more complex. The videos are going to probably be longer because there's a lot more to go through, especially like Flank. He has his pet and then his action skill. Mose has 2 guns and 2 different things. Zane just flat out has 2 complete different action skills and then 2 different sets of action skill augments. So his are going to be really crazy to mix around with because he's doing literally 2 different things, 2 different skills at the same time. But Amara's pretty easy to get along with. I could see her being OP though. She could be really good for the team, especially with that healing and moving the team around faster, stuff like that. She could be pretty dope. But either way, I'm ready for it, guys. Let me know down below who do you think you will be going as first, and if you've already looked at some of this website, let me know some of the skills that might be cool or some different, you know, kind of combos to put together for some of these certain characters. But that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe for more content. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you for watching.